Today is a catechetical Sunday. Hence, it is opportune to reflect on the role that each of us have as virtue of our baptism in reminding our responsibility of handing on over the faith that we have and pass it on to the others, which is part and parcel of being a Christian. And before we do that, we have to also remember that in order to pass this faith on to others, we ourselves have to look into our own faith and realize whether our faith itself is ignited enough to be passed on to the other. And as you know, from the previous week, we have been trying to reflect what is needed, what is necessary to light this flame within us. And we have been trying to understand that a virtuous life is one thing that can help us. The previous Sunday, we reflected especially on the virtue of temperance. And today, this Sunday, especially through the readings, the Lord is trying to present and teach us the importance of being prudent. So this Sunday, we will be reflecting on this virtue of prudence. Actually, in the first two readings, we are presented the two sides of prudence with regarding to faith. In the first reading, we have from the book of Amos, the prophet Amos, where he is standing against and criticizing the people or the citizens out there against the injustice they were doing to the poor, and is crying out against them. And of course, as a consequence, he has to face a lot of difficulties, and as one tradition goes, he says he's even put to death. But at the other side, we have St. Paul, who is telling, we as Christians have to be good, have to be, in a way, quiet in our expression of our faith. So that people who see us can know how wonderful these people are, so that they can be attracted to it. So we have this dilemma with regarding to our Christian faith, where at one end we have this great need to be fearless prophets who call on to the oppressive injustice of our time, and equally we are also called to be Christians who must show by their lives they are not simply political agitators, but people committed to the values of the kingdom, who are exemplary citizens of the world. This is why Pope Benedict would say, in speaking about prudence, he would say, prudence is not something just about what we usually understand. It's not about shrewdness, but rather on the contrary, prudence demands humble, disciplined, and vigilant reason that does not allow itself to be dazzled by prejudice and does not judge according to desires and passion, but seeks the truth, even uncomfortable truth. The truth which St. Paul would say, come to this truth that we have to arrive, which can be arrived through prudence. And prudence is not just any kind of virtue. It is called as a virtue of auriga virtutum. That is, it's called the charioteer of the virtues. Because it is this virtue of prudence which actually guides all other virtues. To put it in different words, it's like this is the virtue which puts into practical terms all the moral concepts that we have in everyday life. When we are faced with a situation of dilemma, what is the good that we have to take? Though we know the good that we have to take in the practical, on the conceptual terms. But what do we apply in our everyday moments of our life when we are faced with this question? Which one to choose? It is this prudence which helps us do this. And if we live in a world which is prudent in its own terms, So much so, prudence is so much necessary that even to survive, we need it. We see it in nature itself. We will witness it as this fall intensifies, we see the trees will change colors and start to fall. It is nature's prudent way to survive. We are in a world which is actually depends on a cutthroat competition, which tells us, be prudent in your choices so that you can survive in this world. And even going to the extremes, we have a lot of people who live and dedicate their life for a lot of shady kinds of business. Even they project cleverness and prudence in order to achieve their demands or whatever they are intending for. So there is something that even these people, as the Lord would say, put this all into one bracket, children of the world, they show a kind of prudence. But as people, as children of the light, we have to learn from them. And that's why in today's gospel, he's presenting a dishonest steward. He's not in any way commending the dishonesty, but rather he's asking us to look at his prudence and asking us to learn from it. But what is this honest steward projecting a kind of prudence? What is that which is attracting, or the Lord is telling us to learn from? Or in other words, what is that which made this dishonest steward change from that state to becoming a prudent one? Someone who was condemned by his master is later on commended by him itself. Actually, when we look at it, though these two, the Christian prudence and the prudence that this person may show, are completely opposite, but the principles are same. The means, of course, will be different, but the ends, the principles are basically the same. And that's what we have to learn from. And in the gospel, we see three things which actually is making this change for this steward from being this person who is dishonored, who is being condemned, to becoming a person who is being commended by the master. First and foremost, what makes this change in this person? Foresight. Actually, the word prudence itself comes from the Latin word prudentia, which basically means foresight or foreseeing. Because till that moment, the steward, he was not only dishonest, he was also foolish in a way. Because he was not just worried about anything. He was just worried about living his life like this. He was not worried about anything else. He had everything at his disposal. So, what else? Don't have to worry about anything. But when the moment came, then he realized, he'd been said, give accountability for your stewardship and you are removed from this. Then he started to realize something. Then he said, what am I going to do from now on? What does my future hold for me? He's looking into his future, his foresight. This changes his attitude. He looks at his future and says, if this is the way I have to change something in my life. And this makes about turn in his old behavior. As Christians, what is the part of the Christian prudence which has this foresight? This steward, dishonest steward, has a foresight for his own future. But as Christians, our prudence doesn't depend upon this future which is going to end over here. We have a foresight which doesn't end over here. We have a foresight of an eternal life. That is the foresight. That is part of being a prudent Christian. The second one, the steward, as you could realize in the parable, he didn't take the present seriously. Since he thought he had everything, he didn't have to worry about anything. But when the moment he realized this present, this future, when he realized about his future, he understood, my future doesn't depend upon something out just there. I have to do something about it right now. Right now I have to do something. That's why till then, someone who didn't worry about his wealth, who was just wasting his wealth, is squandering the wealth, is not using the wealth in a proper way. He's just using the same wealth for something very different. Till that moment, actually, he didn't take wealth seriously. He was not taking life itself seriously. Then he started to see this present. He saw, if I have to have a future which is good, I need to take my present seriously. I need to take my responsibility right now as a steward seriously. Only then my future is secure. This is prudence. Just apply it to our Christian life every day. What is Christian prudence in this sense? My responsibility and my stewardship every day, do I take it seriously? So when I say just before that my foresight is eternal life, but this doesn't depend just on the future. It all depends upon how I take my present today. Or in the words of a big preacher from India, he's called Bobo Capuchin. He would say, decorate the present. In order for this future, decorate your present. Which means just take up your everyday life. Take up your responsibilities. Take up everything that God has given you, your wealth, your property. And sometimes people we do misunderstand. The Lord is always against wealth. No, not at all. You see, even in the parable before, where the master, or the parable of the lost son, or the prodigal son, the father, they are both rich. They have wealth. The only thing is that how they use the wealth. God is not against the wealth, but He is against, in both these parables you would say, He is against squandering it. He's against one who doesn't take responsibility for that wealth. Being someone who doesn't understand that this wealth that has been given to me is not my own, but rather I have been given this as a steward. I have a responsibility. I have an accountability for this. That's the thing that we have to realize. So this is what is decorating our present is about. When we realize that we are stewards, as part of it, I am given something in this world. I have a responsibility that has been given as a husband, as a wife, as a father, as a mother, or in the society and the work that we do. It's a responsibility. When I do this responsibility, I am decorating my present for the future. I am decorating my present for the future. And third and lastly, my trust, the Lord would say, be trustworthy in small things. But our trust should not be in the small things. Just as in this parable, the steward, just before his realization of this, his trust was on his wealth. But later, it is very interesting to note what he does with his wealth. He doesn't say, okay, this wealth, I'm going to keep it away so that save myself. No. He uses, just before that, his trust was on this wealth, but later he understood, my trust is not this. There are things which are more valuable than this, like friendship, like relationships, which last much more than what wealth can last. Much more than what wealth can last. This is a differentiation of his trust. So he completely changes his attitude of where to trust him. From wealth to something much more valuable. That's why almost at the end of the passage today you would say, we cannot serve two masters. We cannot serve two masters. We can either serve God or mammon. Actually, mammon, the etymological meaning of it is one that we trust in. So we have to be trustful or trustworthy in small matters, but we cannot trust in small matters. Because our trust should be in the greater matters. Our trust should be in God only. And this is what brought about the change in that steward, who is commended for his stewardship. And this is what God expects from us as prudent Christians. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, as children of light, we are also called in a special way to keep alive this light of faith by stirring into flame the gift of the virtues, especially as prudent Christians, to share and be witnesses to the children of the world, so that they too can become the children of light. And this is only possible if we are prudent as Christians who have the foresight of our eternal future, showing worthiness in the things of the present or in those things in which the Lord has entrusted us to be stewards, and more importantly, to live life putting our trust in God and God only.